Hey, hi and welcome back. So in previous video we completed all the tools which were present on the layout editor, and now in this video I'm going to explain you the different layers which are actually present on the layout editor, or the different layers with which we have to deal when we create the layout. Okay, so I will explain you all those layers step by step in this video. Alright, so now let's start with this video, which is Introduction to Layout Editor Part 4. So on this layout editor, you will actually see this option which is called as layers, and if I click on this drop down menu, then you can see there are actually different layers here. Okay, starting from 116, so it's not like it's going to be in sequence. Each layer is going to have the different number, like top layer has got a 1, then bottom layer has got 16. So likewise there are actually different layers. Okay, and you can see these are the different layers, but you don't need to worry about all these layers because we don't use all these layers. Okay, only there are some layers which are actually important from layout design point of view. So I'm just going to walk you through all those layers, and you don't have to bother about rest of the layers. Okay, I never used those layers, neither you will find the need to use those layers. So only those layers which are actually very important and most frequently used, and every time you will have to use those layers. So only those layers actually I am going to discuss in this video. So the first layer is top layer. So now let me discuss this layer. So you can see this particular IC. On this IC you can see these red color marks. These are actually the pads of this IC. So these are actually on the top layer. So whatever you see in the red color on this layout, they are actually on the top layer. Okay, because the red color represents the top layer. So this is basically the pad of this IC which is actually on the top layer, and this pad is actually going to look like this. Just a second, let me show you the PCB. So this pad is actually going to look like this, and this is nothing but the copper. Okay, so this is actually the copper on the PCB. So that's basically the layer 1, and then the next layer is layer 2. So we have this track on the layer 2, and whatever you will see in the blue color, that's basically the layer 2. Okay, so this track is actually on the layer 2. If I use this option, mirror option, and if I left click on this register, then you can see this particular register is actually on the layer 2 now. Okay, again I will show you in this on this PCB, and if I go to the bottom layer, then you can see this is basically the register. Okay, and it's actually on the bottom layer. So whatever you will see on this PCB in blue color, it's actually on the bottom layer. Again, these tracks that you see, all these tracks, these two tracks are actually on the bottom layer. So I will click on manufacturing, and you can see this track is actually nothing but the copper. Okay, and this copper track is actually on the bottom layer, and above that track, this track is actually not exposed. Okay, so there is actually a silk screen on the top of this track. Sorry, it is called as masking. Okay, it is not called as silk screen, it is called as green masking. So this copper track that you see, it's actually masked by this green masking. Okay, it's a green masking, and this copper that you see, it's actually exposed. There is no green masking on top of this copper. Okay, so this copper is exposed, okay, so there is no masking on top of this copper, and rest of the part that you see in green color, it's all masking. So there is actually a masking on top of this particular track and this particular track, whereas this wire that you see, on top of that wire, the masking is not there. Okay, so this is actually very important point, from beginners point of view. Generally beginners get the questions here, why this copper is exposed and this copper is not exposed. The reason is, on top of this track there is a masking, green masking, and on top of this wire, it's the green masking is not there. Okay, so this track is actually on the bottom layer. After that, the next layer is pads layer. So right now we actually don't have any kind of pad on this layout. This is actually not called as pad. Generally, when we use the through hole component, it's going to have the pads. Okay, so just a second, let me show you in a moment. So quickly I will select one IC here. I will select a through hole IC here. So just a second. So I will select any IC, any random IC, LM358. I will look for the through hole variant. So this is basically the through hole IC. I will select this one. I will click on OK and I will place it here. And after that, I will click on escape and then cancel. So you can see this IC is now appeared here. So I will just bring it on this layout. So whatever you see this in blue color, green color, it's not exactly the green color. So this is actually the pads layer. Okay. And this pad is actually on the both the layers. Okay. On top layer and bottom layer. That's the reason it's pads layer. Okay. You will see the copper on both the layers. So let me show you how exactly it look like. So you can see that's basically the footprint, and these are the holes for that particular, just a second. So these are the holes for this IC. Okay. So these are the holes for this IC, and right now we are on the bottom side. And if I go to the top side, again you will see those holes on the top layer also. Okay. So that's basically the pads layer, which is layer number 17. I hope this is clear. Then the next one is layer number 18, which is wire layer. So just a second, you can see here these are wires. So these are actually making the connection between the top layer and bottom layer, and these are actually on the layer number 18, which is called as wires layer. I will show you in single layer mode. Single layer mode means only one layer you will be able to see with the help of this single layer mode. If I select the top layer, then you can see only the components which are actually on the top layer, they will be highlighted. Okay. So these pads are actually on the top layer. That's why they are highlighted. Otherwise, rest of the components that you see or rest of the things that you see, they are actually not highlighted, or they are in gray color or in black color. Okay. So that's basically the single layer mode. If I go to the bottom layer, then you can see only the components or the tracks which are on the bottom layer, they are highlighted. Okay. So that's actually the single layer mode. With the help of this single layer mode, you can see only one layer. Okay. So these layers that you see, with the help of this single layer mode, you can see only one layer. Okay. The next layer is unrouted. So here you can see only this yellow lines that you see, they are actually highlighted. So there is no connection between this pad and this pad. That's why this is actually called as air wires or unrouted wires. Okay. So this is basically unrouted wires. So this actually tells you, when you create the layout, these wires actually tells you that there is no connection between this pad and this pad. So you have to do that with the help of this route air wire option. Okay. So that's basically, okay. I will escape, and after that the layers will appear. Yeah. So that's basically the unrouted or air wire layer. Then the next layer is dimension layer. So dimension layer actually tells what's the dimension of PCB. So this layer is actually going to decide the dimension of the PCB. So you can see this is yellow line. It actually tells the dimension of the PCB. That's the reason it's basically the dimension layer. So whatever whatever shape you will create on this layer number 20 or using this layer number 20, that will be treated as a dimension layer by the PCB manufacturer, and that PCB manufacturer is going to cut your PCB in that particular shape. So if you create a circle on this dimension layer, then the PCB manufacturer is going to cut your PCB in this circular shape. Okay. So this layer is actually going to decide the dimension of your PCB, and whatever shape you want to create on the for your PCB, you have to do that in the dimension layer. So you will just use a line and you will create that particular shape with the help of this line on this dimension layer. Okay. So I hope that this is clear now. The next layer is a T-place layer, which stands for top place. Okay. So all these things that you see, these are actually the sill screen. I will show you how exactly it look like on the PCB, actual PCB. So this is basically T-place top place layer. Okay. So this is actually called as sill screen. This white color marking that you see, it is called as sill screen in the PCB language. Okay. And in case of layout editor, it is actually called as T-place layer. Okay. It has got a separate name which is called as T-place, and when it comes to the PCB manufacturing, this T-place layer is actually called as sill screen. Okay, so you can see there are a lot of things on the T-place layer. This actually guides the user to place the IC at the appropriate location. So whenever you will place the IC, you are going to place between these two lines. Okay, so whoever is going to place the IC, these guides are actually going to help him to place the IC at the appropriate location, or between these two lines. Okay, so that's the purpose of this T-place layer. And after that, the next layer is bottom place. So B place stands for bottom place. So we don't have anything on the bottom place layer or B place layer. Then the next one is T names. Okay, so whatever you see, these are highlighted, these names are highlighted. These are actually called as designators. So this is register, and this is the designator for this register, which is R4, and it's actually on the T names layer. Okay, so this is how basically R4 look like on the PCB. And again, in PCB it is called as silk screen, but on the layout editor it is called as T names layer, or this text that you see, it's actually on the T names layer. So whenever you have to place the designators for the component, they should be on the T names layer. Okay, so I hope that it's clear now. Then in the same way, there will be B names. So we have this component on the bottom layer. So its designator is R3, and this R3 is actually on the B names layer. And on the PCB, you can see this is R3, and in PCB's language it is called as silk screen. Okay, so all the designators, all the white color marking that you see on the PCB, it is actually called as silk screen. So okay, so all this white color marking is actually silk screen on the PCB. However, in case of layout editor, they have the different layers. Okay, so I hope that that point is now clear. The next one is T values. So all the components are going to have some values. Generally, we keep the values for the ICs only. We don't keep the values for the resistors and capacitor. For example, this is resistor. So we don't keep the value for this resistor. This is actually, a thumb rule and industry standard. Generally, people don't keep the values for the resistor or any discrete component on the PCB. Okay, the designators will be there, but the values for the components will not be there. But if you see here, we generally keep the values for the ICs. Like, values are nothing but the names for the ICs. Okay, so this is actually the IC 555. So we are going to keep the name of this IC. In the same way, this is LM358 IC, so we are going to keep the name of this IC. And the names of the ICs are actually generally on the T values layer, which stands for top values. In the same way, there will be B values, but at this moment we don't have anything on the B values layer. Okay, so I will be in the single layer mode. Then the next one is B values. Then rest of the layers are actually not that important. So this one is a drill layer. So wherever the manufacturer has to create or make a drill, there all those drills will be actually denoted in the drills layer. Okay, so you can see this is via. So here there will be drill, again here there will be drill. So likewise at multiple points there will be drill, so it will be denoted by this drills layer. Then holes, we have one hole, so it will be on the layer number 45, which is holes layer. Okay, so likewise there are multiple layers. So these were actually some of the layers which are actually important: top, bottom, dimension, T place, B place, T names, B names, T values, T values, B values. So these were actually some of the important layers. Okay, and then drills layers, holes layers. Okay, so these are actually some of the important layers that I have discussed, and I hope that all the layers that I have discussed are now clear to you, and you have a good idea about all these layers. Okay, and only those layers I have discussed which are actually important and most frequently used. Okay, alright, so that's what I wanted to discuss in this video, and I hope that every single thing that we discussed is now clear to you, and you learned something valuable related to the layers in this video. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell in this video. Now I will see you in the next topic, which is about introduction to libraries in Eagle. Okay, so I will see you in the next video now.